Right, welcome, ladies and gents. M3GAN, the killer robot, is actually doing really well at the box office. Now, this is only the domestic box office, just as an FYI, ladies and gents, because M3GAN isn't released anywhere else. You big old poo. I was really quite looking forward to watching this film. I thought it would be good fun. But it releases a week from now, next Friday. It is released in the UK. So M3GAN is looking to be opening with a projected $26 million, which is, I mean, it's not bad. That's not bad at all for a little horror film like this. This is really, really good. So let's take a look at this update. And then there's some interesting snippets I found out about this film, which I think were actually pretty decent decisions by the powers that be. So, January weekend, falling after New Year's Day, the adult films out there are kind of what's bolstering everything, right? And I say that, adult-esque anyway. So M3GAN film is doing really well. Avatar, PG-13. It's not exactly for little kids anyway. That's what I mean by adult films, not that type, ladies and gents. You're wrong-uns. However, Universal take the number 2 spot with Blumhouse's creepy posh doll film M3GAN, which is it's basically Child's Play. It's basically Chucky, just different. So it's looking at a $26.7 million opening after an $11.4 million Friday, which also the previews are thrown in there. The screens it's opened on are not huge, not bad, 3,500 theatres, so not too bad. The Gerard Stone directed PG-13 horror movie landed a 94% certified fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes with critics, and it currently has an audience score of 78%, which isn't bad either. That's not too bad at all. So it's in great shape. And in fact, the individual writing this for Deadline, Anthony D'Alessandro, has actually heard that there are talks about a sequel already. Now, interestingly enough, when we start to look at the other films coming out, because there's now another film out there for people to see, Avatar is down significantly from last week. So, looks like a $10 million from last Friday, so $10 million Friday, that's down 60%. And it's looking at a 3-day average of $37 million, which will be down 45%. That's still very good drop-offs, by the way. That's a very good drop-off, so that's not too bad. It's looking like it will cross $500 million this weekend. But it's an interesting element to sort of throw into this video about M3GAN is because, of course, now that there is competition, Avatar is not the only film to go and see. So it just shows that people still want to go out to the theatres. But this is the interesting thing I started to look into. So remember that weird little dance in the trailer for M3GAN? Well, that apparently almost didn't appear in the trailer. Which is one of those kind of decisions that you hear about and you go, why would you not include it? That's so dumb. So, this comes to us from Alison Williams, who is essentially the lead in this movie. And she said a very interesting snippet. So she goes, the first time I saw it was when Annie Donald was practicing the dance, and then I watched her film it. I wasn't in the scene that day, but I went to the set because I knew she was filming it and I wanted to be there. And it was just extraordinary. Watching the performance of it in and of itself was unbelievable. And by then, we were all very, very familiar with Annie's brilliance as a performer. This is obviously the individual wearing the doll costume. But it wasn't until I saw it fully edited into the movie in its context with the song, with everything, that I was like, oh, this is iconic. And then, when we saw the first cut of the trailer, we were all hemming and hawing about whether or not to let the dance be out in the trailer or try to keep it as a surprise in the movie. And boy, the forces of marketing at Universal were right to keep it in the trailer because it just helped. Honestly, I don't think there's anything else in our trailer that helps convey who she is more quickly than knowing that she's a doll who's going to stop and do a choreographed dance and then pick up a murder weapon and go on her way. That bizarre, off-kilter, hilarious freakishness is exactly what we were going for, and so it really was a perfect illustration of where we wanted to be. I mean, that's great. It's one of those things you just go, why would you not include it? That's so dumb. Super, super dumb. Very, 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 very dumb. But, that, you know, still interesting nonetheless. And then you have this. M3GAN's Rotten Tomatoes score is actually higher than almost every MCU movie. FYI, that's law of averages, right? There's been more people that watch MCU movies than there have been M3GAN thus far. So that does make sense, but it is still funny. And comparatively, you got like Eternals of 47%. Thor Love and Thunder was 64%. Thor The Dark World 66%. The Incredible Hulk 67%. Iron Man 2 71%. Doctor Strange 2 74%. Age of Ultron 76%. Thor 77%. Captain America 79%. It's just one of those funny, interesting points. Now, by the way, they're only referencing the critic score of 94%, you know, the certified fresh. And that will go down. I don't see why it won't go down. It tends to always be the case that they tend to open pretty high and then they get whittled down as other critics weigh in and start talking about the film. And again, make no mistake, I'm not saying that this is actually, you know, a better film than any of those. I've not seen it, I don't know. It's just one of those interesting points. We're all about records now, and people, whenever a new thing comes out, it's always the same. Oh, what record can we state that it's broken? Because that's always what they're so quick to bang on about. And there was an interesting commentary from James Wan, who is the producer of M3GAN, who said basically, you know, could Annabelle and M3GAN go toe to toe? And he said, listen, M3GAN is a whole new breed that we haven't seen before. I wouldn't put it past M3GAN to have great tricks up her sleeves, especially if we're lucky enough to have future stories. Why can't M3GAN have rocket launchers at her fingertips? That would be amazing. It would blow any doll off the planet. And then... oh dear. I mean, this is the new iteration of Child's Play, isn't it? It's the same thing that came out. M3GAN star Alison Williams did say, I wouldn't ever bet against M3GAN ever. I've got to go with my girl. She has the World Wide Web in her being. She could win anything. It's interesting. It's interesting points. Look, I'm really looking forward to this film when it eventually comes out in the UK next week. Again, I should be getting a screener for it, I think. So, yeah, looking forward to this. And you know what? I'm glad it's doing really well. You know, $26 million opening. Pretty bloody good. They were saying that this was going to get absolutely crushed and was basically going to be a bomb. But it would seem people do want to go and watch something a bit different. So that's good. And horror movies, this wouldn't have had a huge budget. So I don't think it's been officially released yet, the budget for this. But it wouldn't be huge. And, you know, $26.7 million opening. They won't be sad at that. That's a pretty good opening weekend. But let me know what you think down below. If you've seen the film, let me know what you think about the film. Because the audiences don't like it as much as the critics. So I'd be curious to see what your personal thought is on the film, being that you would have seen it. So, cheers guys. Take care.